Welcome to the Grit and Grow podcast, where we talk to guests who are pursuing excellence in both sport and life, who encourage and motivate us to become better mentors, coaches, parents, and athletes. My name is Shane Sowden, head men's basketball coach at Briarcrest College, and also your co-host.
And my name is Justin Simpkins, co-host and director of Prairie Hockey Academy.
Welcome back to the Grit and Growth podcast. This is part 2 of our conversation with Mano Watsa, president and owner of Point Guard College. Really, in this conversation, there were moments where I just sat back thinking this is pure gold. It's the kind of wisdom you don't want to miss. You just want to soak it in. In this episode, you'll hear Mano lay out what makes PGC different, how they raise athletes' standards without fear of punishment, and why those lessons go way beyond the court. It's the kind of conversation that sticks with you. Let's jump in. Here's part 2 with Mano Watsa. The PGC camp is such a unique experience for the athletes that are there, and I've been doing camps for years as well. And you guys start from a different spot where you focus on the athlete and what are their aspirations. It's not simply coming, hey, we're gonna do all these things for 5 days, and then you're just gonna be this great better basketball player. But you start where the athlete, where their thought process is, and what they aspire to be and who they aspire to be. But then I think along the week, throughout those 5 days, once you know that, the way you go about that might not be exactly what parents or coaches or the athlete might think how you're going to help them get there. But just to speak to that almost like top-down model of meeting the athlete where they are and then serving them from that standpoint.
Yeah, as coaches, it's really easy to say, here are my standards, here are the expectations, and you're constantly trying to pull the athletes up to our expectations that we have of them. And we're going to teach them, how to raise the bar and raise the standards. So we attempt to come at it, Shane, from an opposite perspective of finding out on day one in the first hour of the camp, what do you want?
Yeah.
And I've done that with every team that I've coached as well. If this season was everything that you hoped it would be, what would you have gotten out of it that will have made it really fulfilling for you? And interestingly enough, for some of the players that I've coached, it's been about winning a championship. For some of them, it's been about individual accomplishments, like I got playing time, or I was a starter, or I averaged 10 points a game or more. But interestingly enough, for a quarter of the players that I've coached, it was about the relationships and the social side. I want to have a team that I really connect with, and I want to have really close relationships. And it's really interesting to just find out what is motivating your players. And when you find out what's motivating your players, and you know what's most important to them, then you can help them and steer them towards the team goals and what they want to accomplish. So at our PGC camps, what we find out is what their aspirations are. And then we ask permission to train them according to their aspirations. So when they tell us that they want to become a university athlete, but they're training at the level of a grade 9 athlete in the way they typically would, we then identify the gap. And then we say, look, here's who you want to be, and here's what it's going to take to get there. And we're going to spend this week helping you to raise your own standards. It's not about our standards, it's about your standards. And we're going to help you to raise them so that you're training according to your aspirations.
That's good. Angus Reid wrote a really good book called Thank You, Coach. And he was on our podcast, and a CFL legend. And he talked about Dan DeRazio, his coach. And when he first met him with the BC Lions, Dan asked him, how good do you want to be? And when he told him, he said, okay, well, I'll see you here at 5 a.m. tomorrow morning.
Giddy up.
He's like, but you don't have to do this if you don't want to. But if you want to be that good, you're going to want to do this. Yeah. Right. So I appreciate you allow that athlete to set the standard, and then you, as a coach, help them get there.
And one of the things we attempt to do at our camps is just tell players what good players do, and let players decide for themselves. Do I want to be one of those good players? And I've heard Coach K at Duke many times reference the best players who have played at Duke. And here's what Shane Battier and guys like Shane Battier did when they played here. And then everybody who wants to be the next Shane Battier, they're now motivated to become that type of player. And so, it just reduces the yelling and the telling. And most players, when they hear what good players do or what special leaders do, they can then internalize that themselves, and it becomes intrinsic motivation, not extrinsic, where a coach is yelling and telling and threatening and punishing. And so at PGC, we're never threatening. We're not punishing. We're not using anger or sarcasm to invoke fear to get the best of the athletes. Those tactics work. They do work. They're highly effective. Fear-based parenting works. Fear-based teaching works. Fear-based coaching works for a period of time until it doesn't, because it tends to create resentment and rebellion. And so we made a decision a long time ago to follow in the teaching methodology and approach that Dick DeVenzio, PTC founder himself, had, which was just to share with athletes a path and allow them to choose that who they want to be, and to provide enough encouragement and inspiration that they want to be that type of athlete. And it's just a far more fulfilling way to coach, and it's a far more fulfilling way to parent, and a far more fulfilling way to teach than having to resort to fear-based tactics to get somebody to change when you're trying to change someone versus them internally wanting to change. They're worlds apart.
Yeah, I can't agree more. What on that note, I mean, it's probably refreshing. I'd imagine. I can't imagine the amount of comments you get from first time camping families at PGC about that experience that they've had. What do you think the future of coaching looks like across North America? Are we moving to that transformational approach?
I think we're definitely, because how do we coach? How do we parent? And for those who are teachers listening, how do we teach? We're all a product of our environment. And so we tend to coach, for the most part, how we were coached. We tend to parent based on the models that we had, and we parent the way we were parented, unless it was so objectionable to us that we try and do the opposite. And but for the most part, we just naturally parent or coach the way we were parented and coached. But when we know better, we can do better. And I say all of that to say, I think there's a growing climate of awareness and knowledge and research, a lot of research that's coming to light that's saying yelling and screaming at your kids is not effective. It's not good for their mental health. It's not good for actually long-term development and long-term motivation. You can get immediate results, but it's going to hurt in the long run. All the research is showing this. And so I think as this research comes to light and it becomes more commonly known, I think coaches then are beginning to change. I think there's organizations, PGC being one of them, but many others who are helping to lead this movement in changing how coaches think about coaching to be transformational rather than transactional. It's not just about getting your players from point A to point B or getting a team from point A to point B. It's the journey and who they're becoming along the way and the process. I think there's a lot of awareness. And then you get coaches at the highest levels. In basketball, Steve Kerr from the Golden State Warriors, who is living out that way of coaching. So I think we're also getting more models in sports who are coaching differently, who are setting a new standard. So I have great hope that things are moving in the right direction. And then I think there needs to be parents that just won't stand for what was previously acceptable. And not in an overbearing way, but to say, no. swearing at my kid, that's not on. I wouldn't accept anyone swearing at me, so I'm not going to allow anyone to swear and curse and scream at my child. And because a lot of times what happens is parents say, oh, that's good discipline. Well, how would you feel if your boss at work tomorrow screamed and cursed and swore at you? You probably wouldn't stand for it. You would say, no. You're not going to infringe on my dignity and not show me a proper level of respect. Yet, for generations, we've accepted that as parents for our kids. So I think there's also, with this growing awareness, there needs to be parents who say, I'm not going to stand for that. I'm not going to have my kids stay in that soccer program or that hockey program if that's the way it's going to be coached.
That makes me think about, the next question I want to ask you is, so in your role as president of PGC and all the different hats that you wear, what's the hardest part about that? Like, what's most difficult?
Probably the most challenging, with scale. It's an interesting piece in terms of standards and culture. When you're just doing something on your own, when you're coaching a team, you're not always present, but for the most part, you're present with the team. And so you can really set the culture and be there to ensure that the culture is being maintained and upheld, and same with standards. When you begin to scale anything in any realm, and now things are taking place when you're not present, the hardest part is ensuring that the DNA that you've attempted to put into whatever you've created continues on without you being present. And so ensuring that the culture and that a commitment to excellence and that standards are being held, that's probably the most challenging piece. And what I'm really pleased about is that for the most part, we've been able to do that with a really high level of consistency. But as our director of coaching development at PGC, TJ Rosine, says, you have to fight for your culture every day.
Right.
And so the hardest part is just continuing to ensure it's not enough. If you try and just maintain, you'll always experience a drop. So we're constantly trying to elevate and enhance with an unwavering commitment to excellence. And I was just telling parents at one of our camps just yesterday afternoon when the camp started, and I had a chance to speak to the parents briefly. I said, at PGC, we're playing the game to infinity. It's the never-ending quest for improvement. And we never arrive. There is no finish line. And so we're constantly good and getting better. We're good and getting better. And when you take on the mindset that you're good and getting better, you welcome feedback. You'll look for feedback. You'll look for criticism as an opportunity to grow instead of getting defensive and deflecting. Say, how do I get better and learn from this? And so we're constantly trying to do that. But we do have to fight for the culture and the standards every day. And the biggest part about that is because we're welcoming 300 or 400 new staff to our summer staff every single year.
Wow.
It's how do we get them to fully embrace the culture and the standards in a really short period of time. And that's the biggest challenge to, you can do it with almost anyone over an extended period of time, but they need to get that within 24 to 48 hours and then be delivering our product at a world-class level. And that's just hard to do.
I imagine that's hard to do. If I can ask, how does that play out? Like, how do you onboard 300 to 400 new coaches, 48 hours of education?
Yeah. And we're trying to have them unlearn how they've spent years of coaching or being coached, and sometimes decades. And so, first of all, we have our online learning, our platform, our PGC Academy, in which every staff member goes through our staff training to really get onboarded to our culture, our standards, our teaching methodology, a little bit of an introduction to our curriculum. But then what we rely on is the strength of the veterans. And it's kind of like a team. When you're coaching a team and you have a lot of first-year players, you need your veterans to really not just model the culture, but to ensure everyone new understands what the culture is and is upholding it. So, for example, we just had a camp taking place 2 weeks ago here at the University of Waterloo, and there was an inexperienced staff that was going to be running the camp. Our directors are veteran, but the actual coaches that were going to be at each basket were new. And so we have power ratings for each one of our camps based on the experience levels of our staff and the quality of our staff. And a new staff has a power rating of basically a 1 on a 4-point scale. And so if a camp is below a certain power rating level, we'll fly in veterans to ensure that there's enough strength from a quality perspective to ensure that they can model for the younger staff the culture and the standards. So we flew in 2 other veteran staff for that camp specifically, and we have staff that's all they do. They're going to get on planes and fly everywhere to help raise the bar for those who are new that need to get acclimatized into the PGC way.
My goodness.
I love that. So, yeah. I mean, just there's obviously moments. I mean, there has to be, right? Where you have a young staff member who might go a little rogue, thinks that, these kids aren't listening to me, wants to yell, maybe wants them to do lines because, his high school basketball coach had him do lines when they weren't listening or executing on a drill. How do you come alongside a coach like that?
First of all, we take it's a great question. We take a perspective that, and we do it with our full-time staff. We do it with all of our summer staff, that everybody is doing the best with what they know. Mm-hmm. And when they know better, they do better. And so we attempt to educate. And so the education is, that's actually not the way we do things around here. And we actually have found that this is a more effective way and leads to better learning. So here's what this is, and why don't you go give that a try, see how it goes, see how it feels. So we attempt to come alongside. So as opposed to kind of a confrontation, we've created a coaching culture at PGC, and part of that coaching culture is encouragement, reminders, and candid feedback. And so we attempt to speak the truth with love and grace. And so we're going to say it as it is, not harder than it needs to be, but with an understanding that not you're intentionally trying to mess this up, you're intentionally getting this wrong, but believing that they're doing the best they can with what they know. And when they know better, they do better. So let's coach them up so that they can know better and do better. And that's how we relate to the athletes as well. Even if an athlete is acting out in a classroom session or gym session and being a distraction to others, we don't take the perspective and we don't write somebody off and, oh, that athlete's this or that. We realize, okay, they're doing the best they can with what they know. And for whatever reason, wherever they're coming from and whatever their experiences have been, that is causing them to act this way at camp. How do we come alongside them and help to show them a better way that can lead to better results for them and better outcomes for the group? And so that's the approach we take to what we call our coaching conversation.
Mm-hmm. Hey everyone, it's Shane here. If you've been listening to the show for a while, you know I'm passionate about coaching. Not just running practices or drawing up plays, but building culture, leading well, and helping athletes grow as people. For me, one of the biggest game changers in my coaching journey has been working with my mentor, JP Nurbin, and his program at TOC Culture. Now, TOC is all about transformational coaching, giving you a clear framework, the tools you need, and the accountability to apply them with your team. And now they've launched something brand new, the Coaches Gym. It's an all-inclusive hub for transformational coaches. Inside, you'll find courses on working with sports parents, managing playing time without the drama, building the foundations of great coaching, and earning your transformational coaching and culture certification. Plus, there's an entire library of ready-to-use tools and systems to equip you to build a championship culture, and a private community of coaches who are walking the same path you are. Now, I started working with JP back in 2018, and it was a game changer for me as a coach in my program. I've gone through the certification process, I've used the tools, and it's been massive in our success the last few years of building a championship culture, both on and off the court. If you're serious about becoming the kind of coach your players remember for life, you've got to check it out. And because you're a Grit and Growth listener, you can save $50 when you sign up. Just go to tocculture.com and enter Grit Growth as the coupon code. That's all caps, one word, GRITGROWTH.
32 years of doing camps, Mano, and you have some excellent systems and teams now, and I think it's really unique that strength or the power of the camp, flying in veterans, that comes through obviously learnings. Was there a particular time when maybe the growth and the scaling felt overwhelming, or maybe even just unsustainable? And what did you learn in that moment?
Yeah, probably the first 5 years. So I naively thought we could grow from 10 camps to 100 camps in 3 years.
Oh boy.
And I thought if we go, we were doing 10 camps, if we do 25 and then 50 and then 100, if we just double every year, that seemed like manageable growth. And the wheels started coming off pretty quickly from a quality standpoint. And there were so many learnings. And I wish I could say we've gotten it right ever since, but we continue to have learnings where we thought we were there. Okay, that's ready to scale. And then we scale and go, oh, actually, there's another leg to this that is the short leg. And there's often a short leg. And we're constantly trying to fix up the short leg. Sometimes the short leg is the training that we've given to our directors. Sometimes it's the quality of our instructors. Sometimes the short legs are curriculum. Sometimes it's our operations team to be able to provide the support, the customer service support, and everything else needed. So there's often a short leg, and we can deal with a short leg that's an inch short, but the stool collapses if one leg is a foot short. Mm-hmm. And when it's almost collapsed at times, what we did was we pulled back and said, you know what, the ultimate goal is not growth with compromised culture and standards. And because of that, we're willing to actually shrink back until we can fix things and get them back in line with the quality that we're committed to. And we're so committed to every athlete having a transformational experience at PGC. Mm-hmm. We'll sacrifice growth in the name of quality, but we'll also push the limits in growth to ensure that we're reaching as many athletes as possible. So mm-hmm. it's not really a problem to solve, as Pastor Andy Stanley from North Point Church in Atlanta says. It's not a problem to solve; it's a tension to manage quality and growth.
Right. I think he also says systems create behaviors. That was one of my favorite lines from Andy Stanley as well.
Yeah. So. And we've often discovered, we need better systems in this realm in order to ensure that quality can be upheld. You're only as good as your systems, even as a coach, the systems that you have in place.
Yeah, a little James Clear Atomic Habits there. Mano, every time I listen or hear or watch any material from Point Guard College, there's always, you guys have some powerful acronyms, one-liners that are there to inspire, teach the athletes, the coaches, but they go really deep. And so two in particular, like the SHAPE framework, mm-hmm. and then the power to choose message that you guys share. And so wanted to give you just some time to talk about those.
Yeah. So SHAPE is essentially an acronym for leadership and what it means to create a winning environment in any realm. In any realm, if you don't have these 6 things, you will not maximize your potential. If you're a mm-hmm. team, you will not maximize your team's performance if you don't have these 6 traits and qualities embedded, not just from the coach, not even just from a leader, but from everyone on the team. And so Dick came up with these. He used the word shape, but added an additional letter to just make it original and memorable. And because that additional letter is so impactful. So if you'd like, I can fly through what those letters are and why they're so impactful.
Go for it.
So shape, the first letter is spirit. And we always say an energized gym or a noisy gym tends to be a winning gym, and a quiet gym tends to be a losing gym. If you ever watch a game in almost any sport, the team that is winning is typically more energized. And if you have a practice that is dull and dreary, you're not going to make the progress that you could make if the team was completely energized. Why? Because energy elevates every human experience. And because energy elevates every human experience, we help athletes discover how they can be energy givers, how they can energize and elevate their environment. So that's spirit. And we teach athletes and coaches how to have a contagious energy. And then the C in shape, so it's spelled S-C-H-A-P-E. Really, a funny side note. So it's shape, but my family a few years ago got me for Christmas a license plate that just had shape on it,
Nice.
license plate. But all the kids at my kids' high school, when they'd drive it to school, they said, "Why does your license plate say Scape?" And so my car has now been named Scape.
Scape.
But it's shape, and the C stands for communication. And you can't create a winning environment without effective communication. And effective communication is your ability to give timely encouragement, timely reminders, timely feedback. And we talk about, at our Point Guard College course, an acronym called NITE, N-I-T-E. And proper communication needs to involve somebody's name. There's nothing more magical in the world to somebody's ears than their own name. So we place a huge emphasis on names. At our PGC camps, every director, regardless of the camp size, needs to learn every athlete's name in the first 48 hours. So the typical camp will have 120 athletes.
My goodness.
It's the responsibility of the director. And when we visit camps, as we do, I'll visit many of our camps on day 3 evening. And in the classroom sessions, they're calling on athletes all the time. And immediately if they ask a question and call on 10 different players, do they know the 10 random players that put up their hands? Do they know all 10 players' names? And we expect and coach our directors into learning all of the athletes' names. And how do you learn that many names? Nobody has a bad memory. Everyone has a brilliant memory. It's just whether they've developed it and whether they care enough to do it. And so we give our directors some tools to learn names. But that acronym NITE, names, information, tone of voice, eye contact. So to be a good communicator, use names and provide relevant information with a good tone of voice and with eye contact. And that's especially important for athletes to their fellow athletes in a practice or a game or in a timeout or pregame, to be able to do that. That it's a requirement of a captain. It's a requirement of anyone who's going to lead well. So that's the C in communication. Ours, communication, the C in shape, and the H stands for hustle. Hustle is, and for any winning environment, it can't be a part-time thing. It can't be a turn off, turn on, turn off, turn on. Every successful team is a team that hustles as an all the time thing. H, that's H. A stands for approach, and we could camp out on approach because all of our camps really focus on this. Your approach is your way of being, who you're being at any given moment, how you're showing up, how you're relating to others. Is it about you or is it about others? Do you have a fixed mindset or do you have a growth mindset? Are you going to be deflective and defensive when a coach gives you feedback? Or are you going to be receptive and inviting because you know that's an opportunity to get better? Our approach shows up in everything you do. I won't say anything more on that. The P stands for precision. And it's really difficult to perform at your highest level and have a sloppy or shoddy approach. And so the best teams and the best athletes pay attention to detail. That requires a level of organization, a level of discipline. You just can't have a sloppy approach. And that's why the best coaches, John Wooden, who was named Coach of the Century, UCLA, 10 national championships, had the privilege of spending a morning. He was a big fan of PGC, and my former business partner, Dina Evans, was like an adopted granddaughter to John, and she would take the staff every year to go meet Coach Wooden and spend time with him, and spent a morning with Coach Wooden. And Coach Wooden was notorious for, on the first day of practice, teaching all of his players how to put on their socks and tie up their shoes. And why was that? Because he knew every detail matters, and he wanted to establish in his players a perspective of discipline, organization, and paying attention to detail. And so the P stands for precision. And then finally, E is enhance. It's tough to really create a winning environment and winning culture if you're not striving to outdo what you did yesterday. And it's the power of, Dick DeVenzio coined this, the power of you yesterday. Who's your best competitor? It's not actually an opponent. The best competitor is you yesterday. Even as a person, each day, striving to get better than you were yesterday, to improve, to grow. And so to enhance is to find ways to make better, to do extra, to do more. And so shape, if a team pours those 6 leadership ingredients into every day of practice and every game, they'll be well on their way to championship performance.
I love it. And Justin, I think it might be fitting if we end with the power to choose for our listeners. So, like, Mano, if you want to just talk to that, that'd be great.
Yeah, really more than anything else, it's about choice. It's about the ability that we each have been given to choose in any given moment how we show up. And as we say on day 3 at each one of our PGC camps, regardless of the course, you can't control every circumstance in life. You can't control. There's so many things we can't control as an athlete: injuries, who our teammates will be, what will happen over the course of the season. But what we can control is our approach and how we're going to respond and not react. And so we talk about a mistake response. Mistakes happen everywhere all the time. What is your response to your mistake? Are you willing to apologize to your spouse? Are you willing to say to your team, hey guys, I blew that one. I don't like how I coached you in tonight's game. I was this, and I think that wasn't my best self. Hey, my play calling at the end, I think that cost us the game. And are you willing to own your stuff? Are you willing to own what you can own, control what you can control, and then release and let go of everything else? And so with a longtime 10-year NBA player that I was helping with their mindset, so as mindset coach for 3 or 4 years, we regularly talked about what it looks like to have a perspective of ultimate faith, to really believe in something, and to believe with faith that you can become something, or that this result can happen, but then to have ultimate surrender and to let go of control, or let go of even needing that to take place. And that's a really difficult one, because either we just let go of having a dream or believing in something because whatever is going to happen is going to happen, or we hold on to this thing with ultimate faith, and then we're completely broken when it doesn't happen, and we even blame God and blame others. And to be able to hold things with a ultimate faith, ultimate surrender, that's the perspective that we had spent the last few years working with him on. And even in my own life and in my own leadership, a perspective that I attempt to live out as well.
Mano, this has been great. I think there's so much so much that you've given to our listeners and both Shane and I today. I like the idea of, getting your team in shape is pretty cool. But just your closing of, can we hold things with an ultimate faith, but also with an ultimate surrender? It just seems like what a space to live in, that you can live in peace in that, if you can get yourself there on the mental side as well. And so I appreciate what you had to offer today.
I appreciate it. Shane, Justin, it has been a pleasure being on with you. Appreciate all the thoughtful questions. Loved this discussion with you both.
Yeah, the pleasure is all ours, and thank you again for doing this. That was a lot of fun.
How far west did the PGC camps come for our listener groups that might be a little bit heavier based in Western Canada? What does it look like for PGC camps?
Yeah, we've had a couple of camps in Alberta the last many years. And then on the U.S. side, we go right out to Washington and Oregon, and so we have a lot of our West Coasters in Canada who either get to one of the camps in Alberta or they get to one of the camps in Washington.
Thank you. We'll make sure we tell people about that as well.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Grit and Growth Podcast. We hope that you enjoyed today's guest and the answers that they were able to give and the stories they were able to tell. If you did enjoy today's episode, we'd ask that you would just follow or subscribe to our podcast. It does help us get the word out in our message. Thanks again. Have a great day.